Good afternoon, Michael Malice here, and let that be your welcome for the next hour. I'm really excited because for the first time we're doing something special here on Your Welcome. We have as my guest Karol Markowicz,
Hi.
New York Post opinion columnist, smart-ish, opinionated, educated, and this is the first time we're having someone on who I disagree with politically, who's read my book, who knows this scene, comes at it informed, and with preconceptions, but that are based on information and knowledge, and we're going to talk about that a bit too. I just have to open with a very big compliment. So I ran into you on the street a couple weeks ago,
Right.
and you were there with your 3 kids, and I very much judge people on how their kids behave. And judgment could be a positive word or a negative word. And I was so impressed, and I'll tell you why I was so impressed. Like, kids in some ways, I guess some people find this insulting, I don't mean it in an insulting way, are like dogs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Are they standing like bold and like waiting to communicate, and like so they're secure in their person, but they're also not obnoxious? And all 3 of your kids, your eldest daughter, and everyone, I don't want to say her name if you don't want to, she's standing there with this big smile on her face, waiting for me to notice her. And that's the mark of a kid who's smart, but not annoying about it, right? And I talked to her, and I was like, okay, there's a mind there, and it's really, how old is she?
Thank you. 9.
9?
Yeah.
It is really rare when you can look at a 9-year-old and be like, this is someone I could have a conversation with.
Thanks.
And then your little boys, they were standing there also, and the youngest one, I go to him like, oh, are you shy? And he was like, no, but that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Where
a
kid is comfortable talking to an adult, but also isn't an annoying little freak.
Right. Yes, that's what I'm going for, definitely.
And you nailed it. I walked away. I'm like, dang. I was so impressed.
I mean, the other side of that exchange is that you were the happiest person I've ever seen walking down my block. You were
I just killed 3 kids.
Skipping.
So, yeah.
You were like literally like a smile. I mean, you weren't smiling because you're not a weirdo walking down the street smiling. But you like looked so joyful. Like you were literally like,
I am a happy
like
person.
in the best mood ever.
No, I'm genuinely. I was just. I remember I was walking, thinking how great things are.
That's amazing.
And it's also a real treat, I'm sure for you too, when you run into someone that you know and like.
Yeah, totally.
And it's just like, it's just kind of like Mr. Rogers. Like, oh, there's my friend.
You were
here I got
Mr.
a package.
Rogers-y.
I have been compared to him because of I have fantasized about being a king and having a friend who's an owl. Okay, so what I want to talk about before we talk about the book. So you and I, what's interesting is we have like the exact same background. You were born where?
In Russia.
No, but where in Russia?
Kuibyshev. It's called Samara now.
Oh, Samara's the girl from The Ring.
Oh, I have not seen it.
You haven't seen The Ring?
No.
You should watch it,
Yeah?
but you have to say goodbye to your kids because 7 days later, you know the premise.
No.
Wait, you don't know the premise of The Ring?
No, I don't know.
The Ring is like the most clever horror movie in years. So
Really?
basically, there's a videotape, and you watch it, and they show the tape in the movie, and it's creepy as hell. And then after you finish watching this tape, the phone rings. Oh, ring. Okay. And there's a voice that says...
I thought it was like ring.
Yeah, that says 7 days. And then 7 days later, you die. So in the movie, the Naomi Watts, I'm not spoiling anything.
Because I'm not going to watch it, but
You have to watch it.
Really?
It's so good.
Okay.
She gets the tape, and her son watches it. And now the phone rings, and she's like, all right, I got 7 days to save this kid. And it was one of those movies when I was a kid, Poltergeist scared me a lot. And then I grew up, I'm like, I'm not going to be scared of movies anymore. And I saw The Ring, I'm like, oh, that was a really good movie. And then I go to bed, I just turn on all the lights. I'm like, unplug the phone, throw the VCR out the window. I'm like, why do I even have this? Okay, so awesome. I want to talk, so that's in Russia though, not Ukraine.
Yes, it was in Russia. My father was from the Ukraine, just Ukraine, not the Ukraine, but yes. And my parents met in Turkmenistan.
You have to go, you're so quiet.
Turkmenistan.
Oh.
Yeah, they were both sent there to work. And
Oh, Turkmenistan is one of the big like dictatorships after North Korea and Eritrea. There's it used to be a giant statue of the leader in the town square that rotates to always face the sun. Did you know about this?
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah. And there's the gateway to hell.
And what is that?
There's a huge oil field that the Russians uncovered, right? And it's the size of a football field. It's a hole in the ground. And it started burning. And they're like, oh, let it burn out. And like 50 years later, it's still burning.
Oof.
And it's called the gateway to hell. And people in Turkmenistan aren't even told about it, like, because it's a very censored country.
Wow.
So you can go see it and just see this photos online. It's amazing. How do you? Wow.
I know.
Okay. So interesting.
See, less smart than you think.
Less informed.
Maybe.
As smart. So you came here when you were how old?
Under 2.
Okay. Same here.
Yeah.
So, but you're a conservative.
Right. And you're, who the hell knows?
I'm an anarchist. I say this constantly and explicitly. And you read the book.
Yeah.
So I want to know, first of all, I just want to talk to you about this because as a mom and as a Russian, Ruski, what are your thoughts about all this Greta Thunberg stuff?
Oh my God. It is just, it's such obvious propaganda. It's so hilarious that like they used to do this to kids and we've seen like, the result of it and here we are again. Yeah, it's wild that anybody would do this to their kids. Like if my kid was crying about the climate or about anything, I feel like it would be my job to reassure them. But her parents are like, no, it's your job to go tell everybody else to be afraid. And it's just bizarre. Like we're supposed to be protecting these kids. And she feels like the adults have all let her down, but it's like her parents have let her down.
What do you think about all the people in the press who are just like, oh, if only we were so wise, we should, I guess I'm kind of leading the question, but yeah.
I don't think a lot of them. It's really it's crazy. Like Red Steves, who I think has been on your show,
of course,
had this
Stephen Miller,
tweeted today about how like the NRA should make a 15-year-old the president, and then be like, well, you can't, this 15-year-old is very concerned about the Second Amendment, and you can't really criticize him because
Yeah, but that would make sense if it wasn't a rules for me, not for thee situation.
Right. Which you address in your book.
Yeah. Okay. We can get, I guess you really want to talk about the book? We can talk about the book. So coming at this, you are, is it fair to describe you as someone who was not pro-Trump, a Republican?
Right.
However, you aren't so far gone that if he does something you like, you're like, okay, I like this.
Sure, yeah.
And you also agree, from what I've seen, that the criticism of him is so out of proportion. Yeah.
Right. He's not a Russian spy. I mean, like, maybe, right? I don't think that we can get everybody to agree to that. Like, it's hilarious. And yet I feel like a lot of liberals would be like, or, they don't call themselves liberals anymore, progressives, whatever, would be like, no, he is being controlled by Putin. He is actually an asset. And like, what? Are you serious? Like,
I think they've dropped that now, don't you think?
No, I feel like they're heading right back into it with Ukraine. I mean, eventually it's going to lead back to Putin. It's like, well, Putin told him to...
It's really kind of amazing to me how they think McCarthyism was the worst thing ever, and it's ridiculous that card-carrying communists were taking orders from Moscow, but we have Trump. Who,
Donald Trump, Russian asset. It's just absurd, and I wish there was somebody else was president. I wish things had gone differently. I have a lot of things I wish were, different about our political system, but I accept reality. I live in the reality that we've got. So the idea that like he's going to be impeached any day now, like I'm scared for them. They're really believing this, and that fall is going to be tough.
So of all the characters I had in the book, who was the one that spoke to you the most?
I liked your chapter on Gavin McInnes. I thought that was really good. I feel like he has, some controversial ideas, I guess, but I thought you treated him fairly, and he was,
Are you even following what he's been doing with the SPLC?
No.
Oh, because he's suing the Southern Poverty Law Center for basically using him as a fundraising tool. I had his lawyer, Ron Coleman, on the show. You probably follow Ron on Twitter. Uh-huh. And basically they ran him out of town on a rail. So he's suing him for that.
I didn't know you could do that.
You could do what?
Sue somebody for using you as a fundraising tool?
Well, yeah, because he's suing them for like defamation and libel, because they're just like, this guy's a hate speech Nazi, hate group leader, and he's just like, you've ruined my livelihood. So I don't know what's going to happen legally, but
the first time I've ever been mentioned on Media Matters, which tracks all the opinions,
jihadi group,
was because I said on Fox that the Proud Boys are not like a neo-Nazi group. I just made the distinction, and that was not okay.
What was your reaction yesterday when you saw Bill Weld advocating for Trump's death?
It's really just, I feel like in general, people have gotten so insane. I didn't see the Bill Weld, but
I'll tell. Okay, so this was the clip. So they say, this was on Morning Joe. And I covered it on my show Nightshade yesterday, because you would think because he said Trump has committed treason, plain and simple.
Right.
Now, I had thought he'd said it, and then people would be like, well, he doesn't realize what he's saying because the penalty for treason. And Bill Weld stares at the camera and says, and the penalty for treason includes up to the death penalty.
Wow.
And you're like, you're yelling about the death penalty for the president on television, and no one thinks this is weird.
Yeah. And of course there's the other angle, which is, Trump is such a fascist and such a dictator, but Bill Weld can say that with no repercussions at all. Like, he sucks at being a dictator, really.
Yeah. And he sucks at being a Nazi when his kids are converted to Judaism.
Yeah, he really doesn't know how to play that well.
So, I mean, what about our contemporary political discourse do you find the most disturbing?
I mean, so much, but I not to like beat the cancel culture thing to death, but it's scary to me that so many friends of mine on the left like whisper things to me that they can't say out loud. Like the Greta thing yesterday, I had all these people, in my DMs and also on my texts being like, I think this is crazy. And they would never admit it, because if you admit it, maybe it sounds like you don't really believe in climate change, or like you're questioning scientists, or, just they have to live a very rigid way. And it's scary to watch it, because I am concerned about it spreading. And I think in general, the cancel culture thing is a left on left phenomenon. They can't cancel you. They can't cancel Ben Shapiro. They try, but they can't, because you don't care. And you're just like, I'm not canceled. And that's it.
Here's my counterpoint. I'm not canceled. You have the floor.
So, right. And then you just move on.
I was in Montreal with my friends, and we were just saying, like, hey, did you hear the good news? What? Trump is canceled. Oh, shit, he's canceled. Like, what are you even... I mean, talk about, like, unmoored from reality. Like, what are you even saying? Right.
Yeah. I mean, he's been canceled a few times. But my friends on the left, who are, my sane leftist friends, are afraid. They're scared to say really normal things that they shouldn't be afraid to say. And yeah, it's worrisome. And I have all these friends also who are like, I think I'm a conservative now. And I'm like, really? What changed? Like, are you pro-life now? Are you for smaller government? Like, what has changed in your life? No, I just think I should be able to laugh at like Dave Chappelle. I'm like, you can do that.
Yeah, be a lefty.
Like, it's okay. Dave Chappelle's a lefty.
Yeah,
you know? But they feel like, that they have shifted. And
I think this is something that you and I are familiar with, because there's something very Soviet about it.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Where you have to have that, I don't know what the term is, but you have that one face in public.
Yeah.
And you know what you're supposed to say. Oh, and you smile and nod. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. And you come home and can you believe this bullshit?
Right. And you can only say that to, a certain number of people.
And then you also have these things you kind of feel each other out to see if the person's on the level. And once you realize they are, you're like, all right.
Like ridiculous, right?
Like, why are we talking about this Willy Wonka kid? Like, the idea that they couldn't even get her to the factory because she's fucked up her scrambled eggs brains.
That's awesome.
I want to be eating chocolates. I should be on the other side of the ocean. But instead, I'm at the UN. This is all wrong.
Stolen her childhood, Michael.
I stole my dreams. I dream of eating the chocolate at the factory.
So wild.
It's just amazing. Okay, so I want to hear, talking about the book. Mm-hmm. Did it take you a long time to read?
Yes, because everything was so like, wait, what did he just say? I have to read that again.
Is that right?
Yeah, I know. It took me all summer. And I would say I have a lot going on, and maybe this night, but yes, it was definitely I read it very slowly, and I read a lot of things more than once, and a lot of it was so uncomfortable, and I'm very open about that. It was a lot of like, wait, what did he just say about how people talk about, race or gay people or whatever? And
so you were kind of a bit in the right-wing bubble, that you were oblivious to this kind of world, or avoiding it, understandably.
Some of it, it's just you made them into sort of people as opposed to just random voices.
Yeah.
And that was super uncomfortable. It's like hearing, the whole thing right now with like feminists are saying they don't want to hear the Joker's origin story because they don't care about how this guy becomes the Joker. Like, why do we have to listen to another white guy's, story of being radicalized? And some of it in your book, I definitely felt like fuck these people. Like, Like, why do I have to hear about how they, like, the philosophy that they believe or whatever? And, when they end up hating Jews or whatever. So, but it was super interesting anyway, because once I got over that, it was like, really seeing where people I deeply disagree with are coming from is, always interesting.
I don't think it's always interesting.
Well, it's sometimes
interesting. Yeah, because a lot of times
you made it interesting.
No,
you did.
like with other, like I'm sure there's times you know where someone coming from. You're like, oh, you're a horrible person. Like you're even worse than I thought. Now that you explained it, and that I don't mean just in the book. I mean that happens a lot.
Yeah,
you're like, oh, you really. There's a great line in Atlas Shrugged, the vampire novel, where one of the secondary characters realizes the truth about her husband, and she goes, oh, you're a killer for the sake of killing. Like you want bad things to happen to people. And I think that's kind of what your lefty friends are saying about being conservatives. Like they're realizing, Marianne Williamson, you saw that hot mic moment?
Oh, yeah.
Where she's like, oh, they really want to hurt people.
Yeah. Right. And they want to destroy her. Like, how dare you take up time in our field when we have a path to beating Donald Trump and you're not on that path and you got to get off.
Yeah.
And it's wild.
You saw Samantha Bee was like, hey, come on my show and quit on my show.
Right.
It's like, why are you?
Yeah.
This one's funny. You're a comedian, right? You should be glad that there's this cartoon character
which is
spreading
not.
Positivity.
Yeah.
So of all the characters I had in the book, who was the one that spoke to you the most?
Cantwell. I don't know if I would call him my favorite person, but I liked his story, and I thought that was an interesting sidebar to the whole book, and the fact that he has been fired and kicked off every platform, and for something he did sort of in the real world and not online, was interesting.
What did you think of the whole Charlottesville and how that's framed?
Yeah, I think that it's just my instinct for people who are marching around saying Jews will not replace us is to be like, go fuck yourselves. But it was tough for me to watch them get fired and be further marginalized, because I don't think you can come back from that. And I think that makes it harder to convince them to come back to like normal society.
In all seriousness, when you do completely marginalize someone at that point, and if the concern, as we were often told, is not Muslim extremism, it's white nationalist extremism, if you make someone impossible to have any communication or any livelihood, that is the road to violence.
Absolutely.
From whatever your background.
Right. I think it's important to help them find their way back.
Michael Malice here. Let me tell you guys about Blinkist. This is a great app. If you go to Blinkist.com, Blinkist.com/malice, you get a free 7-day trial and save 25% off. Here's why it's great. All those dopey books that they talk about your office or your school or with your friends, you don't need to sit down and read them. What Blinkist does is it condenses all of them into 15 minutes. So when they're talking about, oh, you got a date? Oh, I just read Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. Oh, yeah. Does she talk about blah, 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 blah? Done. Michael Wolff. They've got the old school stuff. Dale Carnegie, Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Workweek. Most of these books, like mine, let's be honest, have very little content. So you sit down in 15 minutes, you get the point. If you go to Blinkist.com, Blinkist.com/malice, free 7-day trial, and 25% off your new subscription. You could be as well read as me, but you won't be as ugly. Guys, this is your last chance for a free 2-week trial of Monday.com. You go to Monday.com/welcome. You get a free 14-day trial. Fortnight, some call it. Monday.com is great because it's an organizational tool for your team or whoever you want to work with. You assign tasks, you take ownership, you update it. You don't have to wonder, hey, I wonder if this person is, doing the project. You don't have to email them. They don't have to email you. You have accountability, you have responsibility, you have peace of mind, and you don't have people looking over your shoulder. I hate that. I hate that. If you go to Monday.com/welcome, they're going to give you a free 14-day trial. It makes jobs easier, makes you more productive at work, and here's the other thing, different time zones. You don't have to check in. Oh, let's set up a call. I don't want to be on the phone with you. I'll look at Monday.com. / welcome. Let's get back to the show. So what was the one thing you would say you learned from the book then?
That there is an underlying philosophy. I definitely thought it was just a bunch of stupid racists and anti-Semites who just were racist and anti-Semite for the hell of it, and there wasn't any underlying theory or where they came from or the Pat Buchanan trail that you wrote about. I definitely never thought of them as from a section of conservatism. I thought of them as something entirely separate.
Okay.
And the other thing is it's the new right. It's not the alt-right. There's a lot more than just the alt-right. And to me, I always, for the last few years, I definitely thought of alt-right as all of this. And it's not. They're not all one thing.
Well, I think that's by design. And I think if the press had their way, you'd be all right.
Oh, yeah. No, of course. Yeah.
Well, it's not, of course.
Well, I mean, I know you're not a big Ben Shapiro guy, but, they call Ben Shapiro alt-right. Meanwhile, he was like the number one target of the alt-right.
Yeah,
Just like, he's not, so.
What is your thought process when you see things like the New York Times having that A1 article about there's a kid in West Virginia who's watching Ben Shapiro, Milton Friedman videos, and he went down a rabbit hole and came out of it?
It's crazy. It's really crazy. Like, again, no matter what you think of Ben Shapiro, he's a fairly mainstream person. There's nothing insidious about him, or just it's just all really wild to me. I try talking about my kids. Like I try not to brainwash them, but I am not kidding. Where my 9-year-old, the one that you met, she is super into like Reason videos, and she loves like watching. She thinks they're really funny, and I'm like, you're super dork. But I'm
Matt Welch unfollowed me on Twitter.
Really?
But Glenn Beck followed me that when I found out Matt Welch unfollowed me, but Glenn Beck followed me that day, so it's fine.
I like Matt.
I like him too. We never had beef. It could
weird.
be that I tweet too much, to be fair.
Oh, I don't think you tweet that much.
I tweet a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like your kids are gonna get into whatever they want to get into, and let them follow it. It's, again, they're not becoming neo-Nazi. Then like you're doing okay.
What's your position on vaccines?
I love vaccines.
Okay, I mean,
vaccines for everybody.
Do you think that vaccines cause autism?
No.
Do you think Reason videos cause autism?
No.
It's certainly the path. You better watch out for her. She's going to end up like Greta. This is how it starts. 1 minute they're watching Reason, the next they're quoting Lysander Spooner.
Well, I feel okay about it for now.
She's only 9. Let's worry about she's got 7 years. What is your, do you consider yourself red-pilled or blue-pilled? And do you think that's a valid concept?
I also never saw The Matrix. I know. But in your book, I really like where you're like, you're supposed to take one red pill, not the whole bottle. I feel like I see what's going on, or like a lot of the pickup artist stuff that you wrote about also. I don't understand why people get so mad about it. Like, it's just sort of tailoring yourself to human nature, like what people like and what they react to.
I think what it speaks to is there's an insistence on a certain type of leftist mentality that we're a blank slate, and that there's no kind of contradiction between our conscious and our subconscious mind, right? That if someone acts a certain way, you know exactly why they're acting that way. It's always racism or being anti-racist.
Right.
So if you have someone who's using techniques that are working on a second level and are effective, that screws up your whole worldview, where you're totally in touch with every aspect of yourself.
Yeah, but everybody's using techniques. It's just,
but they pretend that they don't.
Right, they pretend that they don't.
Or I think they actually believe it. Or do you think they believe it?
I mean, little things like why women wear makeup, or not to go down the whatever that guy's name is who always talks about high heels.
Stefan Molyneux.
Yeah, what a weirdo. But like why do we accentuate certain things, and why do we drop our voices a little when we're talking to somebody we like? Or it's all the same
because
thing.
We're scared.
Yeah. So like I don't know why the pickup thing bothers people so much.
So let me explain what I mean by red-pilled in the book, and you could tell me if you think you're red-pilled now.
Okay.
Being red-pilled is the idea that what is presented to us as factual and truthful in the press is in fact a carefully constructed narrative designed to manipulate and control and preemptively remove choices from your philosophy or whatever it is.
I don't think that there's like a overarching, philosophy behind it where they're trying to manipulate, but I think they are trying to push a certain point of view, and that point of view always gets the preferential treatment, and all other points of view are weird. Or
I don't understand the contradiction between those two because
I don't think that I don't think they're having meetings being like, how do we structure all the news all across the country today? It's just hiring all people that sort of think the same way and pushing that point of view. Right.
But the point is, if you had 10,000 people go to like KFC college, right, and learn how to fry chicken that way, you don't ever have to do anything else. You send them out to the rest of the country. All of them will cook the chicken in that same way because they've all been trained the same way. So it's not like there's any meetings, but they all have been taught a certain worldview that now they will go out and promulgate.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah, sure. Okay. KFC college in every newspaper.
Right, exactly. But but the other point is, and this is kind of red pill versus blue pill, do you think there is a bias in the reporting that's primary, or do you think there's an agenda that's primary?
I think it depends on the writer and the journalist. I think for some of them, yes, there's obviously an agenda, and for others, there's just the point of view that they come at all the time. And they probably think that they're being fair or unbiased, but obviously not.
Okay. So what's something...
Just nicer than you are, I think.
Or more naive. I don't think you're nicer than me. You're a mom, and I've seen how your kids behave, and that's not a function of niceness. And especially with the DNA that you have, that's not even possible. Yeah. No. What were some of your, what didn't you like? What did you disagree with about the book?
I don't know. I think that it took me a while to get over the fact that you were making them persons, people. You would talk about going to a dinner party where like you had to break into a conversation and say that, hey, I'm Jewish. So,
well, I said I'm here from Zog.
No, I went to yeshiva was your...
No, I said I'm here from Zog, Zionist occupied government. And then I watched everyone's reaction, yeah.
Right. But the fact that you have to do that and you're writing about these people, not in I wouldn't say you wrote about them in I guess there was I definitely felt like you were a little bit sympathetic to their
You have to.
cause, right. Yeah. I don't think you were, so that just was hard to adjust to, because for a long time I was like reading it like, fuck these people, like who cares? Like who cares what their point of view is, that they come up to this Jew-hating end, like what do I care?
Well, I mean, the thing is, do you disagree that like culture is moved by small, motivated minorities, and that the masses are basically just going to be like flotsam in the ocean?
I think they're moved like that for a short term. Like, I don't know that this new right is here to stay.
Okay.
I think there's been other movements like it. I think there have been, even when the Tea Party was a thing, I didn't love that because even though I agreed with them on, all their kind of ideas, because it just seemed like a short-term movement that would dissipate, and as soon as a new character came up or a new personality, and it did. Yeah. And I think the same here. I don't know if post-Trump, the new right survives. I mean, other candidates like him haven't caught fire on any local or state level. And I think there's a reason for that. He's his own thing. He's his own kind of candidate.
So do you agree with the progressives that, like, if Trump stops being president, we're going to go back to normal?
No. Were we ever normal? I'm not sure.
We're more normal than now.
Right.
Listen, I'm sorry. There's a big difference between Bill Weld on MSNBC saying the penalty is death and 2013.
Yeah. Although, going back to the Bush years, they also were considered abnormal. I think for the left, only when a Democrat is president is at a normal time.
Sure.
The joke that Trump is so different and that Trump is treated so uniquely. I worked, in the Bush years. I worked on the Bush campaign. I remember so clearly all the different Nazi references to him.
Oh, yeah.
All the different, he stole the election, and I'm talking about 2004, not even the 2001. just the constant barrage of illegitimate president and regime change in America first and all of that. And so the idea that it's unique to Trump that the left has this insane outburst for 4 years or 8 years, it's just not true.
But I think the difference is how Trump is responding to them versus how Bush is responding to them. Because I can't remember, I guess Reagan would be the last one where you had any prominent right-wing Republican personality, politically speaking, who uses humor.
Yeah, that's probably true. I think Bush is funny, but I think that in those years he felt very just isolated, maybe because I think he wanted to be liked, and he was so violently hated that I think it took its toll on him.
Do you find Trump funny?
Yeah. He had the hilarious Greta tweet yesterday.
People tweeted at me, they go, I wish I could have seen your face when you first saw this.
Or his de Blasio tweet, like room for growth. He was a total zero, but lots of room for growth. I mean, that's really funny. He comes off weird a lot in all of his interactions. I think he's good at tweeting, and that's why he keeps turning to it. I don't know. You know, he's funny, definitely, but he's sort of odd.
What do you think of your fellow conservatives who are like the Bill Kristols and the Max Boot, who you probably agree with on many issues because you're more of a neocon than I am?
See, I don't know. I don't know what to think of them anymore because they no longer agree with my issues. And I, you know, the idea is also like you're saying I could be called alt-right. I also always hated being called a neocon because I'm like, what the hell's a neocon? I've been a
warmonger.
Right. Like I'm not super,
are you a warmonger?
I mean, not really, no.
Should we be involved in Iran versus Saudi Arabia?
No, definitely not. Or at least not like in any war capacity.
Do you not agree with my point that that the stigmatization of warmongering in politics is one of the greatest thing that's happened in the last few years?
Yes, I guess. I again think that post-Trump, you're going to see a return to normal about
they're
that.
They're going to try as much as possible.
I don't know that once it's a Democrat again, the war will be for good and no longer just warmongering. So,
what's your reaction to how Tulsi Gabbard's being treated?
Oh, it's so unbelievable. I mean, just the fact that she is even slightly off the Democratic reservation is just, and that she's being left out of everything and doesn't even get polled because they just desperately don't want it to be her. But again, she's a liberal. Like, what is she not a liberal on? Just like a couple of like minor things. It's not even in any other universe, Tulsi Gabbard would be considered a normal liberal.
It's shocking to me because you and I are both old enough and have been politically interested enough to remember how during the second Bush term, I think literally every day, it's about the war. He's fucking up the war. New York Times, war deaths, this guy's blah, 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 every day. And, you know, when my understanding is in 2004, when the Republicans had their convention here in New York, how dare you come here? It was the biggest protest in like world history, like the march, right? It was just like, or maybe that's what they said, but it was huge.
Yeah.
And now you have a candidate who's like an anti-war Democrat, and it's like, how dare you? It's like, wait, what? This was your right. The last Republican president. This was your number one issue. Yeah,
and it's hard to not notice that in the Obama years they think that we didn't have any war. They think that it didn't happen, and that nobody died, and there was no foreign entanglements, and anything that Republicans or anybody complains about is just trying to hurt Obama because he's black, and that's it. You know, you just don't like him because he's black.
What's your reaction when your lefty friends tell you, I'm thinking of being conservative? Do you kind of like play that line a little slowly?
I love being like, I think you're just being a little radicalized right now. I honestly don't talk them into joining the right because I don't think that they're conservatives. I think they're saner liberals. Yeah, I feel like I'm not breaking any confidences here, but you met Blake Nelson.
I don't know who that is.
So he wrote this book called Girl a long time ago, and it was one of my favorite books when I was in my late teens, like early 20s. And I happened to meet him in New York. I feel like I introduced you guys.
Oh, maybe you did. Okay.
So he wrote a recent book called The Red Pill, and I read your book and Red Pill sort of side by side in the summer.
I heard his book's terrible and no one should read it.
No, it's so good.
No, it's nothing compared to mine.
It's a
I'm going to
fiction.
kill his family. Oh, it's fiction? Okay.
It's fiction, yeah. It's fiction.
Okay,
it's more about the like pickup artist community and stuff like that. But it sort of treats...
I shouldn't have killed his family. Damn, that ship has sailed. Well, what are you going to do? Not kill someone's family? Okay, they're crazy pants.
So it treats a Trump voting person like a regular person and not like a psycho,
like a Klansman.
Yeah. Right? And he got all this pushback, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sort of moving to the right." I'm like, "You're not. You just are treating people normally, and you're getting pushback from the left for it." He did a reading at a bookstore in Portland where the employees boycotted outside. So yeah.
What is do you agree with the concept of the Overton window? Had you been familiar with it before?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you think Trump is useful in that regard?
It's hard to say because I don't see Trump as this like conservative guy.
He's not.
Right. And so is he moving it to the right? Somewhat, but I don't know. Like a lot of his trade stuff, for example, is so left that I don't know. I don't know how it helps my side or what the move. The things that I would like to see happen. I'd like to see more free trade, less of this insane trade war tariff nonsense with China. So I don't know. I feel like in some ways maybe he's moving it a little bit, but it's not on the issues that I sort of care about.
But do you think? See, it seems like you're like many conservatives. You're so much more focused on the political aspect than the culture that informs it.
No, I think I worry about both. But it's the whole Trump thing, right? Is he winning or is he not winning? It's sort of the political moment. It's much less about the culture thing with him. It's more about like what wins are you getting? But
I think it is about the cultural thing in terms of them not having cultural dominance and a monopoly. And like, for example, if you had President Bush right now, you can very easily see him inviting Greta to the White House.
Yes, you could. Yeah,
easily.
Right. Yeah.
And I just tweeted this morning on my way here that Trump should say, she wanted to endorse me, but I didn't want foreign interference in our elections. And you could see him doing that, and we would be peeing our pants, and then they'd be like, he's lying again.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Definitely something like that would be more acceptable under a different Republican president. Yeah, I forgot what I was going to
But does that not concern you? Do you not see how that's insidious?
Yes, I prefer a Trumpish approach of mocking it, but I don't prefer that all the time. I think for a Greta situation, yes, but I think that a lot of his I don't know. I think a lot of his like rhetoric is pushing people away. And again, maybe that is coming back to the political implications of it. Like I don't like that the right is losing voters because Trump is kind of an asshole, and that makes people annoyed and turns them off from the greater message of that I would like to see pushed.
But I mean, do you not also agree that a lot of people, just the strongman theory of politics, are drawn to someone who's just aggressive? Just you don't even know anything about anyone.
Yeah.
People are just drawn to aggressive people.
Yeah, and to just winners.
Yeah,
the fact that he won, I think, moved people over to him. I know people who were pro Bush, pro Obama, pro Trump. It's they just always like the winner. Whoever's winning, that's their guy. And it's not crazy. I made my mom vote for Ted Cruz in the primary, and she was like so annoyed with me that he lost. Like,
like, why'd I get out of my house for this asshole?
Why am I voting for the loser guy? Like,
because he killed JFK.
Right.
But again, so do you agree with Breitbart's concept that politics is downstream of culture?
Yes, definitely.
Do you agree with the idea that the universities are the main enemy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that we don't engage in culture at our peril, and I don't know if me and you are on the same R, but
I don't think we are on this one.
But like there's not a single. There was one show that sort of treated conservatives normally, Roseanne, and that was taken off the air, but it's coming back or whatever. There's not one late night comedian that's even moderate, let alone right of center. I mean, they're missing. If we are fighting for culture, we should be fighting for all of these things too, and I don't see the right doing that.
Do you? I mean, I don't think, and I talk about this in the book, that conservatives have any idea where culture comes from, and have no ability to really create it. And I mean, is that something? Because they're like, okay, how come we don't have our own Daily Show? And it's like, it's at a certain point, this isn't a coincidence,
right? Although, how do you get how do you get a not a Daily Show, but like any late night?
Well, the only example I thought that's a counter, and this is because it's coming from a marginalized group of people, namely Christians, which are to some extent culturally marginalized, even though there's a lot of them, is the Babylon Bee, which I'm sure
so good.
You're a fan of.
Right.
They just had an article yesterday. They said, you can see the strings during Greta Thunberg's UN talk.
Yeah.
The marionette strings.
Right.
I was just like, you guys are amazing.
Good.
They followed me on Instagram. I was ecstatic.
Yeah, they're great. They're really good. So you want to see more of that? Or
well, I'm asking you, if you, as a conservative, understand that culture is such a political driver,
right,
and you also understand that conservatives are completely shut out, do you think this is a coincidence? Do you think, how did we get to this point?
No, I definitely don't think it's a coincidence. I think that the liberals are in charge of a lot of things on television, for example, and it's very hard to get a non-liberal in those slots. It's hard to even imagine somebody making fun of a lot of the liberal protests or Greta or whatever on TV, because I think that's just not done. It's not a coincidence, but I don't know what you think conservatives can do about it.
Oh, I don't think they can do anything.
Okay.
But
I thought it seemed like you were blaming them for not trying hard.
I am blaming them. I am blaming them in the sense that they understand something's a problem, and then it's like, well, oh, shucks. And it's like, what?
Right. But what could you do? Short of... I like the Fox example where, and I feel like I say this all the time, but... that they Fox discovered a niche market, half the country, when they started, and yet nobody's thinking about that for a late night TV show. Not one producer, not anybody, in any of the networks is thinking half the country would watch this because there's nothing else to watch.
Well, I think the problem is that, and I'm sure you would agree with me here, they don't see those hosts as left. They see them as normal.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And if you're going to be conservative now, it's propaganda, even though you literally had Stephen Colbert giving Hitler salutes and comparing Trump to Hitler. But that's not political propaganda.
Yes.
But if you had someone who's like, hey, maybe we should consider adoption instead of abortion, this is Hitler.
I don't even think you need to even take it that far. Jimmy Fallon got in so much trouble for tousling Trump's hair.
Treating Trump normally.
Treating Trump like just,
another interview.
Yeah, just anybody. And you're not allowed to do that. You have to be Greta Thunberg and scowl at him and,
I should be in school on the other side of the ocean. This is wrong. You've stolen my dreams. This is a rare opportunity where you get to speak to the author of a book.
It is.
Do you have any questions?
I feel so just honored.
Well, that's the correct approach. Do you have any questions for me?
So what happened after the book was done? Do you still
he died.
Do you still hang out with these people, or what's are they your universe?
No, I don't think they are. It depends on the individual. Cantwell, who's the so-called crying Nazi from Charlottesville, he appreciated that I treated him fairly. Some people, I don't think I've had an issue with anyone I interviewed in the book at all. They all appreciated being treated fairly. And if I can treat North Korea fairly, the least I can do is, because I think their ideas are often wrong on their face. You don't need to, because when I talk about in the book also is when you caricature someone's idea and then that person talks to that person, and instead of them being at 100, they're at a 90, you've lied to them and now you lose credibility. And it's you could just, with Trump, I always make this point. They go, what if instead of being literally the worst president ever, he's mediocre, he's McKinley? But to say that is insane. It's so to prove them to be ridiculous, he just has to be pretty bad.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a thing. It's unfortunate because a lot of times I will get these hardcore anti-Semites on Twitter, and I'll be talking about, I got this pen made out of a bone, and they'll be like, well, why aren't you talking about Israel?
Right.
It's just okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. That's not my issue.
Right.
I don't know that much about Israel. North Korea is if you want to talk dual loyalty, my second loyalty is to North Korea.
Right.
And it's frustrating also because they're always like, well, why don't you debate such and such person? And I'm like, for the same reason I'm not currently making a souffle. Like, I'm not how is debated? like I've debated one person. It was Tom Woods,
Right.
Who's the very failed podcaster. He cleaned my clock. Okay, so I'm 0-1. What am I doing? What the hell are you talking about?
Right.
So it's very, very odd. And it's also interesting to me when they're like, oh, you're too scared to talk X, Y, and Z. I'm like, I put it in writing. I talked to the worst ones
Right.
from culturally speaking, and they're in the book, and they
Yeah.
liked it. So your premise is false.
Yeah. So you don't hang out with them anymore.
Well, no, some of the people, I mean, that party you're referring to,
Yeah.
I didn't really know most of those people, so we were never friends. But yeah, I have, there's even Cantwell, who's the Nazi, who's like full-blown Nazi, is not one who's like, every single Jewish person is evil. That is such even like...
Just most.
But there's a big difference because
Right.
if someone right away is that racist or anti-Semitic or is misogynist, and as soon as they say women, they're like, oh, there's no point in talking to her. There's no mind there. Like it's just, there's no human being there. So I think what I talk about also is when I talk to some of these people, or Stephen Miller's another one they all love in the White House, not Red Stees.
Right.
When they see someone, and I made this point about this is how gay rights happened. When someone's uncle or their neighbor is gay, and you're like, oh, he sucks,
Right.
but I don't want to kill him.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? It's a lot harder to have this vitriol
Right.
when you know even one or two people, and you're like, okay, I have a distaste, and then that's progress. And as Jews, we'll take it.
Sure. Did you feel like you were that for some of them? Like,
For some, I was not. For some, I reaffirmed everything that they believed, which is
I
fine.
knew it, yeah.
Which is, of course.
Right.
And I was more than happy to be the bad guy. I wear villainy well. And for some of them, yeah, it's just like, all right. Like, it was... I'm like, it's... And the other thing, I get a lot of messages from, like, young people. They're like, I was going down this kind of rabbit hole, and you pulled me back.
Right.
Because I'm like, yeah, you hate the right things. And you're seeing things correctly, but you don't, pump the brakes on the car a little.
Right.
Because you're going to end up in a really bad place and then you're fucked for life. Like that girl, I remember her name. She was writing for one of these, or she was on Twitter, and,
Yeah.
her life's ruined.
Is Cassandra or something?
No, it was Brittany or something. Whatever her name was.
Yeah.
And, she sold out all her friends, but she's like a complete pariah.
Right.
And like on the one hand, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be dabbling in Nazi ideas, which is, on the other hand, it's like, sure, I mean, you feel horrible and your life's ruined.
Right.
And what happens to her now? Literally, what are you going to do with her now?
Yeah.
Do you want her to be homeless? Do you want her to starve?
Right. Yeah. AOC wrote, tweeted or wrote something at some point, like if you have somebody in your family who's like a white supremacist, like let them know that you're holding a place for them to come back. And
Oh, she said that?
yeah, she said that. And Bethany Mandel, who gets a lot of crap on Twitter for being pro-Nazi, she's a Jewish mom of
Very
religious
Jewish.
Orthodox Jewish mom of four. But because she wrote one time about like engaging with the neo-Nazis instead of just being like, no, forget it, you're out of the world. Bethany was like, I said the same thing as AOC, and I get called a Nazi lover every single day.
Yeah.
And,
That's the other question I have is like, literally, in any society, what are you going to do with the heretics? You can't banish them.
right.
And that's the issue I have with the hardcore racist.
Yeah.
It's like, you think black people shouldn't be here. Okay, fine. What are you going to do? Like, you're going to take 13% of the population and teleport them to some
Right.
place they've never been? That makes no sense.
Right. Well, I think, the fear is that they try to do violent, things against them.
and that is a fair fear.
Right. And for Jews, obviously, that's been in the last year, like more of a fear after the 2 synagogue shootings. And
What do you think of do you think it's real that there's growing legitimization of anti-Semitism on the left?
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I see it, again, in my liberal Jewish friends who are afraid because they can't be themselves. And when you can't be yourself among your political allies, that's a real problem. It is tied up in Israel, but it's not just about Israel. These attacks, they happen every few days in Brooklyn on Orthodox. And
It's that frequent?
it's very frequent now. It's like literally every 3 to 4 days, like an Orthodox person gets attacked in like Williamsburg or Crown Heights, or so often.
I did not realize that.
Yeah. And that's not happening because of neo-Nazis, So yeah, I think it's just, it is a real problem.
So of all the characters I had in the book, who was the one that spoke to you the most? Okay.
Yeah, I like what you had to say about the hungry caterpillar. I thought like it was just it went really deep into his motivation and how he ate through that green leaf. And
Do you think the way that they're trying to tie him into Trump is kind of ridiculous, or do you think there's some truth to it?
you could see similarities, right? Like the guy who eats everything and then has to take the day off and eat that healthy green leaf. You know, I could see where they make that comparison.
So this is you being blue-pilled. You're saying the media is fair in this one.
Only on this one, though.
Let me tell you guys about BetterHelp. If you go to betterhelp.com/malice, you get 10% off your first month. Here's what it is. Everyone listening to this show has severe mental health issues. If you didn't have them before, you sure have them now. BetterHelp, if you take out a questionnaire, they help them assess your needs. You get matched with a professional counselor. It's a safe and private online environment. Everything you share is confidential. They have counselors who specialize in issues like depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, family conflicts. A lot of you guys are fugly. They can't help you with that. This is for mental health. If you go to betterhelp.com/malice, you get 10% off your first month. Don't like your counselor? Think they're too fugly? That's okay. You can request a new one at any time at no additional charge. You can do secure video sessions, you could do phone sessions, you could chat, you could text with your therapist. You can make them as messed up as you. Or you can use them to make yourself a little bit less messed up. BetterHelp.com/malice for 10% off your first month. Well, I mean, what do you view? Do you think, let's have some quotes. Let's see how many of you agree with.
All right.
Okay. Do you agree that the corporate press is the enemy of the people?
No. Enemy of the people? I mean, I don't like the corporate press, but enemy of the people, I just feel like that's like a touch too far.
Okay. Okay. I wish I had the bowl. So one blue pill. Okay. Do you agree conservatism is progressivism driving the speed limit?
Yes, I do agree with that, even though I wish it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I do. Yeah.
1 and 1.
I think you also say this in the book, like, I forgot your exact, I read it in the summer, but it was like 5 to 0 to 10, and
right.
Then you meet at 5, and then the next time you fight at 5 to 15. Yeah, I do.
So basically, the point is, like, conservative says 0 on a scale of 1 to 10 for the audience. Progressive say 0. Progressive say 10. Conservatives are like, fine, I'll give you 5. Next cycle, you're starting at 5 to 15.
Right.
And like, fine, we'll give you 10.
Right.
And eventually, it just always goes in that one direction.
Yeah. It's. I mean, just like I do care about spending, even when, you know, it's a conservative or Republican or whatever, like doing the insane spending. So yeah, I hear you. Like I do feel like conservatism should fight a lot harder to be at 0 and not meet at 5.
Do you agree that public schools are literal prisons for children, and for many people, the only time they'll encounter violence in their lifetimes?
I've heard you say. I've read you say that a few times. I don't know. Maybe my kids have been lucky. I don't know.
Your kids have been lucky,
yeah.
by the way, because they've got a good family.
But also, I don't like. They have not encountered violence.
Only
I asked.
home?
Well, I asked my 9-year-old what kids make fun of each other for these days. Like, you know,
that's a great question.
Yeah, I was like clothing, names. You know,
Are you giving her ideas?
Right.
Here's something. Well, if you don't have any, here's some clothing, ethnic origin, nose.
So she said nobody makes fun of anybody anymore.
That's not possible.
Nobody makes. I mean, she goes to a super nerd school.
But that's still not possible.
She said nobody makes fun of anybody.
That means she's the bully. That means she's the
like
one
the sweetest little thing ever.
At home.
No.
It's like when people have
way.
this, like my friend had this cat, Silver. It was very, very, very sweet. And then it turns out the cat was kicking everyone's ass in the neighborhood. And I don't mean other cats, I mean children.
Sorry, did I just disconnect
You're
something?
fine.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. No, she said that they don't stand for it. There's zero tolerance for anything like that, and they absolutely will take action if they see it.
Do you agree that when it comes to Trump, we don't deserve him?
No, we do deserve him.
Yeah, see,
we deserve what we got.
I love that expression because it's either a compliment or a huge insult.
We're sinful people.
Do you? What were some of my other sick burns?
Malicisms.
Yeah. Do you agree that when it comes to the corporate press, these people genuinely think they're your betters?
Yes, I do. I think that they think they know best.
Do you think that progressivism is domesticated imperialism?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I have a lot of red pills, no?
You're doing great, dude. You're doing great.
Thanks.
We're almost there. Do you agree that the three legs of the progressive school are the universities, media, and politics?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
That's an easy one.
Okay.
Doesn't even.
Well, no, I think a lot of conservatives just think it's about government.
No.
But that's decreasingly the case.
Right. I think education, I think colleges is like at the top of that.
Do you agree that the battle is won when the average American regards a corporate journalist exactly as they regard a tobacco executive?
See, that's where I think you're just like a touch too far. Although I don't think regarding a tobacco executive should be something bad either. Like
I'm saying the same.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
But people do regard them like as evil. So no, I don't think the press is evil. I just think they're extremely unfair and biased, but I don't think that it comes from an evil place.
Are some people better than others?
At what?
Are some people better than others?
No.
One's better than anybody else?
I mean, yeah, it's some things. Like,
okay, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
That's my right wing versus left wing test. If you're right wing, you say yes. If you're left wing, you give a speech.
I feel like I just tried to give a speech.
No, but you asked for clarification. It's not the same.
Right, okay.
What are some of the other?
I just don't want to come out left wing here, you know?
No, you're
Right,
almost
okay.
there.
Okay.
Do you think Pinochet did nothing wrong?
No.
You think? Wait.
I mean, the throwing people out of helicopters, and not such a huge fan.
What people? It was communists. Excuse me,
Right.
alleged communists.
Hopefully, they were communists.
Yeah. Oh, I like it. Yes, that's the quote. Hopefully. Listen. Okay, I made the case for police brutality when I had Eliza on my show, Eliza Orlow's public defender. I go, okay, I'm an anarchist, right? I don't want police. Given that I have police, now I have Sophie's choice. I'd rather if I'm going to have police, I'm going to have police brutality. I'd rather they be beating up people who play their music on the subway than beating up innocent kids.
Okay.
So you're like, all right, listen, I don't want anyone throwing out of helicopters.
But
if they're throwing somebody, I hope they're commies.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you agree with my opinion that it is?
Who could disagree with your opinions?
Well, these are facts. That's because they're
right,
facts. My friend had this great quote in her live journal. This was like 20 years ago. She goes, "In my opinion, aka the Holy Scriptures, I forgot what. That many of these people on the left would not care if you and your family were vanished."
I mean, it depends which people on the left. Like, I don't like the describing a whole side of the political spectrum in one swipe.
Okay, let's
give
take
me a blue pill. Go ahead.
Let's take a step back. Let's take a step back.
You know,
Do you agree that progressivism, and I don't mean liberalism, I mean specifically progressivism, is a thinly veiled fundamentalist faith?
Sure. And that faith is misplaced because I think that they think the government is going to save everybody. So, yeah, sure.
Do you think those types would care if you were vanished?
Again, I have friends who are progressives. Would they care? Yeah, they'd care. But like, would random progressives, I don't know.
Do
Probably
you think
not.
your friends, those friends you're talking about, would care if, let's suppose, Milo were shot?
Misha, that's a tough one.
Yeah, you can answer Russian, but they don't know what Dan Yek means. These are idiots who watch the show.
Right. Because I saw people celebrate like Andrew Breitbart dying on Twitter.
Wow.
Not friends of mine, but like you saw it on Twitter, right?
I wasn't on Twitter then. That was a while ago.
Oh yeah, no, I was totally on Twitter.
Okay, I wasn't.
Yeah, a lot of people were very happy.
And Breitbart's nowhere near as toxic a person as Milo.
So you know that they would celebrate. And but see, that's the thing. If we're like okay with throwing communists off a helicopter, what do we care what they celebrate,
Do you think I remember my question, that it is probably the biggest failing of the right wing that Americans specifically, I'm talking about American right wing, don't understand what communism was and how bad it was.
Oh yeah, totally. I think that's crazy. That somebody can run on being a socialist now, like openly, and no, I'm a democratic socialist. Like what? Yeah, I think that's
it is mind-boggling. Like a lot of stuff
Yeah.
I can explain away. This one, the fact that it's not beaten to everyone's heads,
Right.
what life is like, Venezuela,
Yeah.
Cuba, North Korea, Soviet Union. It's even Franco. He's a fascist. What people do not in this country appreciate. They talk about Hitler in terms of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
But if you ask them, what else did Hitler do besides the Holocaust? It's not, oh, everything else was fine. It's so evil on so many levels.
Right.
Stalin, so evil on so many levels. And the fact that there's so little understanding of that in this country. And my friend, when Castro passed away, he's Cuban. I got to tell him. And it was
Oh, wow.
like,
Yeah,
I have a great present for you. And people are upset because like kids didn't get why this is a big deal and some of these obituaries. And I go, I want us to be so privileged that no one has any idea of what this is like.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. Although obviously just being raised by people who, survived communism, I'm sure the same for you. I feel like I have to pass on a little bit of that fear to my kids. Like in general, I protect them from all kind of anything bad or, scary. But I definitely am raising them to fight socialism with everything because, they survived and they're here and they should.
Karol, we're running out of time.
All right.
What has been your favorite part of the interview?
Gosh, Michael, there was so much. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I don't have a favorite part. Who can choose?
You are welcome.